And organized truth is the only truth. You dig? So it says the true heart of science isn't a bunch of facts. It's the method that scientists use to gather those facts. Science is about exploring the natural world, making observations using the five senses, and attempting to make sense of these observations. Did you get what science was about? Scientists, including biologists, use two main approaches when trying to make sense of the natural world. The scientific method is basically a plan that scientists follow while performing scientific experiments and writing up the results. Do you got what the method was about? So if you guys are trying to prove the method in other places, if it doesn't follow that and what I'm about to read, it's not the scientific method. It's real simple. It's something else. It allows experiments to be duplicated and results to be communicated uniformly. Here's the general process of the scientific method. Here we go. Number one, make observations and come up with questions. What's that? Or how does it work? Number two, then form a hypothesis. Come up with the most likely explanation for a set of observations. However, it must be testable or falsifiable. Number three, next, make predictions and design experiments to test the idea. Typically written if ... then statements, okay? Number four, test the idea or ideas through experimentation. As they conduct their experiments, scientists make observations using their five senses and record these observations as their results or data. Any scientific experiment must have the ability to be duplicated because the answer the scientist comes with, whether it supports or refutes the original hypothesis, can't become part of the scientific knowledge base unless other scientists can perform the exact same experiment and achieve the same results. Got that? Whether a scientist is right or wrong isn't as important as whether he or she sets up an experiment that can be repeated by other scientists who expect it to get the same result. Scientists are continually poking and prodding at ideas, always trying to get closer to the truth, because that's what it's about. They try to keep their minds open to new ideas and remain willing to retest old ideas with new technology. Scientists also encourage argument and debate over ideas because the discussion pushes them to test their ideas and ultimately adds to the strength of scientific knowledge. When many lines of research support a particular hypothesis, the hypothesis becomes a scientific theory. I'll read that one more time. When many lines of research support a particular hypothesis, the hypothesis becomes a scientific theory. You got it? The method comes first, then the theory. A scientific theory is an idea that's supported by a great deal of evidence that the scientific method produced. Okay? A great deal of evidence. So a scientific theory is an idea that's supported by a great deal of evidence by the scientific method, by the way, and hasn't been proven false despite repeated tests. Scientific theories don't change as often as scientific hypotheses, you see, due to the significant evidence backing them up. But even scientific theories can shift in light of new evidence. Ideally, scientists always keep an open mind and look at new evidence objectively. So scientific theories don't change as often as scientific hypotheses or scientific hypotheses, or should I say. Scientists publish their work in part because scientists in different areas of the world may be trying to answer the same questions and could benefit from seeing how someone else approached the problem. So this ain't just bound to America, like some of you guys may think. All scientific journals have one common characteristic. They're all considered a primary source of scientific information, meaning they contain a full description of the original research written by the original researchers. Scientific journals undergo a peer review process to help ensure the reliability of published scientific information. Okay. Textbooks are considered secondary sources of scientific information, meaning they compile or discuss information taken from primary sources. Secondary sources aren't usually written by the original researchers. The popular press, newspapers, magazines, and television and radio programs. So let me back up something here. Okay, here we go. So the popular press, newspapers, magazines, television, and radio programs are considered tertiary sources, meaning they're twice removed from the original source of information. What are the popular press, newspapers, magazines, television, and radio programs? Everything you guys use as primary sources. These are in the third, okay? They are twice removed from the original source. The popular press provides information, of course, but the validity of that information isn't guaranteed. There's always a chance that the journalist doing the reporting may have misunderstood the scientist's research or something he said or she said. It's like that old childhood game where the information given to the first person is usually changed by the time it's relayed to the last person. Okay, you got that? So let's back up. Matter of fact, let's keep going. This is how you properly research. Visit government websites that nn.gov.gov. Serve university websites that end.edu. Okay. Be careful when visiting organizations or organization websites. These websites end in .org. Large orgs with good reputations, such as the American Heart Association, usually have good quality secondary information on their sites. Okay. They may have, or they may even post links to primary sources. However, smaller organizations that don't have an established reputation aren't good sources for scientific information. I don't know about the other stuff you're researching, but for science information, small orgs, no good. Avoid commercial websites that end in .com. Yeah. When you are looking for scientific information, people and organizations operating commercial sites are trying to sell you something. They have an agenda of their own, which means you can't trust that they're completely unbiased. Not like Unbiased Sports. You dig? The information they present may be one-sided or not accepted as reliable by the scientific community. That's how you properly research. So that's it. That's a tip there. When I research, listen, I'm looking for the .gov, the .edu, at the very least, the .orgs. I don't even show you some .com stuff. You ain't gotta worry about that for me. Okay. So useful in a scientific sense means that the idea has observable consequences, right? That means it has some kind of effect that can be detected by carrying out an experiment. By experiment, scientists mean any measure of anything at all. The swing of a pendulum, the color of light emitted by a burning candle flame, or the collisions of subatomic particles in the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. If there are no observable consequences of an idea, then the idea is not necessary to understand the workings of the universe. Although it might have some sort of chimerical value in making us feel better, okay? The idea is not necessary to understand the workings of the universe, although it might have some sort of chimerical value in making us feel better. What is chimerical? It's an adjective. It's hoped for but illusory or impossible to achieve. And that's most of y'all doctors. Most of y'all doctors are chimerical. It's hoped for, but impossible to achieve. All right, so stick with science. The futility of holding on to concepts that have no observable consequences, personal delusions, and devising a theory that cannot be proven or disproved by observation is pointless in the sense that it teaches you nothing, irrespective of how passionately you may believe in it. Okay, so you can believe in that till you blue in the face. It teaches you and the rest of the world nothing. You can invent any object or idea you like, but if there's no way of observing it or its consequence, you haven't made a contribution to the scientific understanding of the universe. The physicist Richard Feynman once said that no matter how beautiful your theory, no matter how clever you are or what your name is, if it disagrees with experiment, it is wrong. Doesn't matter how colorful it sounds and looks. No matter how clever you are supposed to be, or what your name is. All these big fancy names. Yo, so-and-so said. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. Example. A marine biologist is exploring some rocks along a beach and find a new worm-shaped creature he has never seen before. His hypothesis is therefore that the creature is some kind of worm. B, the marine biologist then predicts that if the creature is a worm, then its internal structure should look like those in other worms he has studied. C, the marine biologist tests his hypothesis by dissecting the worm-like creature, examining its internal parts carefully with the assistance of a microscope, and making detailed drawings of its internal structures. D, the marine biologist discovers that the internal structures of the worm-like creature look very similar to another type of worm he's familiar with. He can therefore conclude that the new animal is likely a relative of that other type of worm. Finally, communicate the conclusions with other scientists. Communication is a huge part in science. Without it, discoveries can't be passed on, and old conclusions can't be tested with new experiments. When scientists complete some work, they write a paper that explains exactly what they did, what they saw, and what they concluded. Then they submit the paper to a scientific journal in their field. Scientists also present their work to other scientists at meetings, including those sponsored by scientific societies. In addition to sponsoring meetings, these societies support their respective disciplines by printing scientific journals and providing assistance to teachers and students in the field.